listening to the Terrific Teacherpreneur, a podcast for teachers looking to grow a successful online business. Your host, Alex, was able to transform her Teachers Pay Teachers store from a small side hustle into a profitable full-time business. She now helps other teachers do the same. Listen along for actionable tips and helpful wisdom about business and marketing as a teacherpreneur. Here's your host, Alex.
Hello and welcome to the Terrific Teacherpreneur podcast, and happy holidays. It's December right now. I'm recording and releasing it in December, which is unusual for most podcasters because a lot of the time we tend to do things really in advance, but it actually really is very Christmassy right now as I'm recording stuff. And I'm just very much into the spirit of Christmas right now. We've got the tree up, the decorations are out. Like, my toddler is really into it this year, and it's been kind of fun. You know, when kids really start to get into it, like I've been really getting into Christmas and enjoying it. And I hope you're having a good time of the year this year, whatever you celebrate. But this is going to be my last episode of the year. So it's kind of a bit of a celebrating 2025, looking back, like also planning for next year. I'm talking a little bit about, planning for 2026, goals, the new year, like what to do with your business next year, that kind of stuff. I also want to talk about some mistakes I've made and some things I'm changing in my business, some different views that, I've always had that I'm kind of changing. I don't know, it's a bit of a mishmash episode, but also kind of a little bit of a little look back at the podcast as a whole for the last couple of years, because as of this month, I've hit 5 years of this podcast, which is crazy. Half a decade. It's just absolutely crazy. If you've been listening this whole time or most of it, thank you so much for being along for the ride for this long. I know myself, like I go through little phases with my business and certain things, and I think I'm kind of gearing up for needing a bit of a break. So this could be the last episode for a little while. I just definitely need a little hiatus just to kind of have a little break, I think. Hoping that you'll still be around, if I do come back next year. But yeah. Anyway, let's start off with a little bit of talking about 2026 coming up, 2025, the reflection, all that kind of stuff. And then I'll move into the thing I want to talk about, all the mistakes and things. Looking back this year, I want to be kind of positive and say, these really great things happen and talk about the positives. But I think it's okay sometimes to be a little bit negative and not always just be talking about wins and stuff. I, for the first time in a really long time, have had to feel like I've had to work a lot harder to maintain my sales. Sales have just kind of always kind of grown for me over time, and I've put in effort, don't get me wrong, but it's not been like I've had to like work my butt off kind of thing. But I think I'm just getting to that natural point in my business where if I want to increase my sales at this point, I've been selling for 10 years, like I'm very much, you get to a certain phase of your business where you have to start doing things differently if you want to continue growth. Like, growth really happens easily when you're a new seller. It's just like you can like double, triple your sales. Like, it's very easy in the early years to have this extreme growth in your like early days. It's your growth phase. And it's very common as you get later on into TPT and down the years, you start plateauing, you start declining, things go on like that. I'm really lucky that I haven't struggled with that in the past. But yeah, this year I started to think, hey, I'm not seeing the same increases I would normally see, where things just like naturally just go up. I've had months that are just like, hey, this is kind of meh, kind of similar to last year. Like, I don't know. And I started to think, so this is sometimes it's a bit of a sign that you've got to change and evolve and adapt. So 2025 has not been like my best favorite year on TPT, if I've been honest. Like, it's just, I've started to have to like look at things and be like, I might need to change things. I might need to do things to make sure that my sales stay on the upward trend. And that's been kind of a bit of a wake-up call, if I'm honest. So yeah, looking back, I wouldn't say this has been like the best year ever, but I certainly hope it's been that way for you. You might be listening and thinking, hey, 2025 was an awesome year, and I really hope that's the case for you. But I think it's nice to look forward now. I want to look at 2026 and talk about that for a second. This is a really great time of the year to start thinking, what am I doing next year with my business? What are my goals? What do I want to achieve? I know that it's just like, whether it's December 26th or whether it's January 3rd, like it doesn't really matter. It's all just dates. But I think it's nice when the new year rolls around that you kind of go, what do I want to do this year? And you set goals. It's just like, it's nice. So I encourage you to take some time to think about what you want to achieve in 2026. Like, what are your goals for your business? What do you want to do? And I guess if I'm being honest, I want to try to evolve a little bit more and be more flexible and willing to try new things and change the way I've always done things and take on new ideas and like kind of learn to be different. And I guess I'm going to now go into what I mean by that. I mentioned at the beginning, like, what I was wanting to talk about this episode. And one of the big things is that I want to talk about when you're wrong about stuff, when you've always been doing things a certain way and you feel like a certain way about something, you see things a certain way and you're really stuck in your ways, and then you kind of have to evolve and change. And I love listening to Taylor Swift. My Spotify Wrapped for the year said that I mostly listen to her along with all this kids stuff, because like my daughter has totally ruined my Spotify. It's all like Wiggles and whatever. But on there was Taylor Swift, and I've always loved that she's so, I don't know, she adapts so much in her business. Like, she's been around a really long time, and the only reason she's still relevant is because she constantly evolves and adapts. She does not just stay doing the same thing all the time. And I love that about her, and I kind of want to emulate that in my own business. So here's the things that have been on my mind lately. One is the TPT seller survey that I did a few weeks back with Rebecca, another TPT seller. She was amazing. I don't know if she's listened to this or not. I hope she is. Thank you again, Rebecca. She was amazing. Couldn't have done this without her. She was the one that put all the data together. So 100% she deserves all the credit for this. But she put together data. Everybody, was answering these questions. And it was really eye-opening for me to see that product creation was one of the big things people said was really helping their growth. And I feel like I've had to unlearn something, like something that I've always kind of said and believed, and now I've got to change my view on it. And this is what I'm talking about. It's so important to adapt. I think I always had this idea in my mind, product creation is for newbies. You churn out loads of new products when you're a brand new seller in your first year or two. That's totally normal. I did that. You go through this like product creation burst where you just like churn all these products. And then once you've got like 100 resources in your store, whatever, and you've got all the products, then your goal should be optimizing those resources, making them better, getting what you already have to sell, doing more marketing, that kind of thing. And that's what I always believed. I believed you can still make products, but you don't need to really be focusing that much on product creation anymore because your goals have kind of changed. And I guess I'm okay admitting I was wrong. Yeah, there I said it. I was wrong. I was so stuck in that mindset. I really thought I don't need to be constantly making products, like churning out products on the hamster wheel. And I was wrong. You do need to be making products. You do need to keep creating new, fresh products. And last week's episode where I was sharing some tips from a really, really successful seller, and they were like, yeah, Target does this. They constantly release new stuff. And since she said that, I now go out into the shops and I'm looking around and I'm like, yeah, this is all new Christmas stuff. This stuff wasn't around last year. They're constantly trying new things, making new products, seeing what hits and misses and what flops and what's trendy. And businesses do that. They constantly bring out new stuff. And yeah, I feel like I've had my eyes opened, and I've really taken my eye off the ball here, thinking, I don't need to be doing this. I don't need to be constantly making new products because I'm a like veteran seller. And I was so wrong. It's not even funny. Creating new stuff is so important. And I really want to get back into that now, like really, really prioritizing that. And there's so many different reasons for it. Teaching and education evolves, what people want and need changes. But the biggest thing, if you're listening and you're someone that's been around a while, is you cannot bank on those old resources you made years ago selling forever. They just don't. Bestsellers change. Things eventually just like die out. They cannot live on forever. You cannot have a bestseller that you made in 2008 continue to sell in 2028. It's just not going to happen. Like, I myself made a lot of, things in like 2018, 2019, and like some of them are starting to decline. Like, I have to accept that. Like, it's fine. Things cannot live forever. Products that that have been a really big part of my store, my business, having to accept they're really old now. Like, that's fine. It's okay for me to find something new to be a bestseller. So constantly creating new stuff gives you new opportunities to meet buyers' needs, find new buyers, make things that teachers actually want, try out different niches or explore different product types or evolve your business in some way or another. And I just like to think of it like Taylor Swift, the way she was like releasing country music and then now she's releasing all this pop stuff. She was willing to evolve. And if she can do it, we can do it. So yeah, this is more for if you're listening and you're quite an established seller. I think it's really, really important to make sure that you aren't getting super distracted all the time by marketing and optimizing, and actually make sure that you're not trying to like flog a dead horse. Like, we're just always going on about these old products, trying to get them to sell more. So maybe we need to just accept defeat sometimes and say, hey, this product has done all it can for me. It's time for it to die, and maybe something else new will take its place, and I need to be willing to try new stuff. So it's been a big learning curve for me. I'm accepting that I was wrong on the product creation stuff, and I profusely apologize if you listen to me rant on and on in the previous episodes about how, I don't know, optimization is the most important thing. It is important, but product creation, I feel like, has been kind of pushed aside a little bit, and I feel bad about that. So that was a big eye-opening moment that I've had in the last few weeks. The other thing that I want to talk about today is pricing. But before I do start that, because that's another thing I'm talking about, some opinions I'm having on pricing that have changed and some new thoughts around pricing. I'm definitely going to dive into that next. One last thing I will say is bundles are a great way for you to make products without actually making products. I've done a little bit of that lately. So I want to be releasing new stuff, but I don't actually want to start from scratch, thinking of a new product idea, like making a new resource from start to finish that takes ages. I was like, is there a way for me to release new products that doesn't actually require product creation? And I've actually done a few bundles lately where I've just pulled things from my store that I never thought to bundle, made some big ones that I thought, surely no one's going to buy this. Turns out people will. And then just repackaging things and mixing things up a little bit, going, hey, I never thought to put that one and that one together, or I never got around to it, or I could never be bothered or whatever. And I was like, so I've been doing a lot of bundling lately. Hey, maybe there's a smaller mini bundle version I can make, or maybe there's a mega one I never thought to put together. And so that's just a little piece of advice for you. If you're like me, been around a while, you want to get back into releasing new stuff, you haven't yet come across a new product idea that you get excited about, that's fine. In the meantime, you can be releasing new stuff by just bundling. So just thought that was a little tip I wanted to share. But yeah, let's talk about pricing. So this is the next thing. I've often been a big fan of charm pricing, which is where you price things at $9.99. I'm not 100% changed my view on this. I still like I don't like charging things like $5 or $10 because I think it pushes you out of the certain ranges on TPT. So there's the under $5 category and the under $10 category. So if you price something at 10, like 10.00, you get pushed out of the 5 to 10 category and into the above 10. And I'd much rather charge $9.50, $9.75 or something to kind of keep myself in that category. But I used to be really, really passionate about charm pricing, like charging things like $9.99 or whatever. And I'm actually experimenting at the moment. I'm changing a few prices in my store and I want to see whether it makes a difference or not. According to ChatGPT, who I asked, it's unlikely that suddenly implementing charm pricing or taking it away is going to suddenly make a huge difference on your sales. But I just kind of wanted to open my eyes a little bit to the idea that, maybe that it's not the best thing ever. It works in so many industries and it's been proven over and over again to be really, really effective. And so that's why I've always kind of championed it. But looking into it now, I'm like, well, maybe TPT is a little bit different because it's an educational marketplace. It's very like homemade-y kind of, it's kind of like Etsy, but homemade, made by real people. It's not a grocery store or whatever. So I'm sort of changing my view on that, again, admitting that there's something that maybe I want to try differently, and I'm going to experiment and see how things go with that. I'll let you know if I notice anything. But again, willing to evolve, willing to adapt, willing to change my views on something that I've always believed. And this is the takeaway for this episode, is if there's something that you've always been really opinionated on, always really believed, always kind of done in your business, and you've refused to adapt and change, you got to remember that you want to be channeling your inner Taylor Swift. You want to be willing to evolve, willing to adapt. It's such a beautiful thing if you can say, hey, I was wrong, or hey, I'm going to do something different. Because if you just get so stuck in your ways, doing things a certain way all the time, you really can slow down your business and hold yourself back and slow your growth. And I think it's okay to admit that sometimes, that it's not always someone else's fault. Let's blame the economy, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, the economy sucks, but sometimes we are the ones, we're the ones in the driver's seat. We have the control of our business. And sometimes we are really, really stubborn and we refuse to change things. And we've always done something a certain way. And we don't like change, and that's just totally natural. Our brains do not like it, apparently, but we have to be kind of progressive in our business. We have to be willing to evolve. So have a little think. Is there something that you've kind of always done? Are you willing to try something different? Maybe there's something that, you'll see in a Facebook group sometime, in the next few weeks or months. Someone will say something and you're like, oh, I disagree with that. I've never done that. I don't agree with that. And then in the back of your head, you'll be thinking, Alex did tell me I've got to be willing to evolve and adapt a little bit. And maybe, just maybe, this will stick with you and you might be willing to try new things and take on new ideas and listen to other people and do things differently. I think it's very, very worthwhile. I think honestly, I'm talking to really veteran sellers in this episode. If you're listening, we're the ones that have been doing this a long time, and we are the ones that tend to be most resistant to change. We don't like when new sellers come in and say, hey, you should be doing this. But like, you don't know what you're talking about. You're a new seller. But really, we're just not willing to change the way we do things. That can sometimes be really hard to hear when other people give us advice. But yeah, this is your little reminder to be willing to change. The other pricing thing I want to talk about before I wrap up is I've kind of had a bit of an eye-opening moment that I think maybe I've been overcharging for a lot of resources. So I'm having a bit of a pricing crisis at the moment. I've been selling a really long time and I've never really increased my prices. Just over the last 10 years, like, the economy or whatever. I've never been one to do that. A lot of businesses do. That would be totally fine. I have increased prices based on conversions and data and, this is selling really, really well. The conversion's crazy high. Maybe I can bump it up a bit. So I've done, I think, decent price increases. But overall, I think sometimes I've been guilty of overpricing, and this is a me problem. Definitely probably doesn't apply to you if you're in the US. But I live in Australia, and so everything on TPT is in US dollars. And although I like to tell myself I'm converting it in my head and stuff, I'm not really. I think I look at that dollar amount and I think Australian dollars. And it's very hard if you're an international seller to remember to convert that to your own currency and then think of that new number. And is the product worth this new number? And I think I'm so guilty of just looking at something. I see the $3 and I think of $3 And it's like, that's not the same thing. They're so different. $3 I don't know what the conversion is, but let's say it's more like $5 And then suddenly like, oh, wait, this resource is not worth $5. So it's been like, thinking a lot about pricing lately. And I think the reason I've been thinking about it a lot is because the economy is so bad. And I can see people are purchasing less bundles, less big resources, less expensive resources. And I know that's a common theme with other sellers, because naturally times are tough, times are hard. So people are just maybe going to buy a $2 resource and not a $20 bundle right now. And that's fine. But it makes me realize, I just want to make sure I check in on my store, make sure that I'm not overcharging. And this is a tough conversation. A lot of people listening to this will not agree with me. They'll think, don't undervalue your work and don't drop prices based on all this kind of stuff. They probably won't agree with me, but I want to go back to my roots a little bit and try to remember what I felt like when I first started teaching and I was first exploring TPT. I try to remember all the time how I felt when I was a newer teacher. My wage wasn't super high when you're brand new, and at first I was just downloading free stuff. I was not willing to pay at all, and then I warmed up to it and I started gradually buying things on TPT. But a lot of the time I would look at a resource and I'd say that's overpriced, and it was like this huge resource. It had like loads and loads of worksheets, maybe like 50 worksheets or whatever, but it was like $5. But I'd be like, oh no, that's overpriced, because even though there's those different versions and stuff, I felt like really I could only use that maybe once or twice. And it's like, if you really think about it, if teachers spent $5 in every single lesson, like, well, it's just not sustainable. And I look at a lot of the products I do have that sell well, and they tend to be more versatile, resources that they could use for way more than just a lesson or two, something they could probably kind of whip out all year long. Like an example would be, say you have, so I have a lot of writing resources. So writing prompts, for example, if you have a resource that has 50 writing prompts and they're all really different, so the students will be writing about different things, maybe even covering different genres or whatever. If you think about that from a teacher's point of view, say they do spend a couple of dollars on that product, $5, whatever, they can use that all year long. They could put a prompt each week into their centers or their bell ringer morning work kind of stuff. They could send it, one each week for homework, or they could use it for a literacy lesson, each prompt for each lesson, like that. I don't know, they could spend a couple of dollars on TPT and have something that is just so versatile and has so much longevity. They can use it all year long. They could get, I don't know, in theory, like 50 different activities or lessons out of it, because each prompt can be used in a different way, or with, it's not the same thing over and over again. You get what I'm saying? Now let's compare that to another resource that has the same number of pages. It's also got 50 pages, but there's only 4 or 5 activities. A lot of the pages included are like to do with the activities or different versions, differentiation or instructions, all these different things. But at the end of the day, when they actually look at it, it's only going to cover 3 lessons. They use this activity for that one, that activity for the next lesson, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, it's great that they've got those 3 lessons done, but that is not the same value for money as that first example I mentioned. So these 3 writing activities cover 3 lessons, and then that's it. For the rest of the year, that resource doesn't get used ever again. Whereas the first resource I talked about, they just get using it all year long. And I've been thinking a lot about that lately, thinking back to when I was a new teacher. I remember once buying this unit from someone, and it was these math worksheets, and it was for a certain topic. I believe it was like graphing data. You guys like data? And it was, I was teaching this topic for about 2 weeks, and so I used a couple of the worksheets, but I think I'd spent $15 or something on it. I don't know, quite a large amount of money. And then I really regretted it afterwards. I thought, that's a really large amount of money, and after those 2 weeks I'm never going to use this resource again until next year. And there were so many worksheets in it, but I didn't need that many worksheets for that topic, if you know what I'm saying. Whereas imagine I'd spent $15 and I'd got that same number of pages, but they weren't all the same topic. It was math, like a variety of math topics, and I could use it throughout the year. And I'd use a couple of the graphing worksheets, and then 2 weeks later I'm teaching addition, and I use some addition worksheets. And that's a very different story. And I think that's what I've been thinking a lot about lately, is teachers getting real value for money and being able to use a resource for a really long time or in loads of different ways, and how that makes them much more willing to purchase, much more happier when they review, much more likely to come back and buy from you. And yeah, looking at some of my resources, some of the ones that sell well, like I said, I can see that value. I can see, hey, they could totally use this so much. And then there's these worst sellers I have, and I'm like, oh, this is a really cute little craft, but you use that for a lesson or 2, and then that's it. Or it's seasonal. They use that for Christmas or whatever. I don't know. And then that's it. And it's that's the, yeah. And I feel like I've had a bit of another eye-opening moment around pricing and realizing we have to be so careful with how we price things. And this is not a sign to go into your store and just drop all your prices, but this can be something to think about when you're creating new resources and you say, I'm about to create this little cute seasonal activity. But remember, this is really only going to be used once this year. And then once the kids have finished that activity, Halloween has finished, that's it. The teacher can't use it for the rest of the year. So I can't charge that much for it. And if that's the case, maybe I'm wasting my time making this. Maybe I should be putting my energy into making some big full year, set of activities where they can make non-seasonal maybe, or crafts for different topics, and they can, and I can charge a lot more for it, and the teacher can use it whenever they want throughout the year, loads of different times. And I just think it might be something to think about, is, looking at making your resources be really, really valuable to teachers beyond just a lesson or 2. I don't know. I don't know if you agree with that or not. I don't know what your thoughts are. I'd kind of love to hear. Sometimes I don't know when I talk about these things whether people are nodding along thinking, yes, I agree 100%, or they're like, Alex, shh. I don't know. Anyway, okay, that's all I wanted to say today. I've had definitely some changing views and opinions around things to do with pricing, the product creation stuff. I thought it'd be interesting to share that with you, just to kind of ramble and share my thoughts, what I'm feeling, what I'm going through. Like I said, 2025 was a little bit not as exciting as I thought it would be sales-wise. Definitely not seeing that same year-on-year growth that I used to just naturally always see. So I've got to work a lot harder, and I need to be willing to adapt. But I'm excited for 2026. I hope you are too. And I think it's really important to, start fresh, set some goals, think about what you want to achieve. Do you want to start your email list for the first time? Are you going to be releasing a new product line you're really excited about? What are you doing? Make some goals. I think it's really great. Don't obsess about money. Don't try to aim for a certain amount of money each month. I want to make this much money. You don't really have control over some of this stuff. You do have control over how many products you make and how many products you optimize, and how much SEO you do, whatever. So set yourself really reasonable goals that you have control over, and then you can really tick off and feel proud of yourself. If you set yourself this goal that you're going to make this these 10 resources, and they're going to be really big and involved resources, you're so excited you can just work on them throughout the year, and it's going to make this big long year-long bundle or something you're really excited about. Set that as a goal. That's great. Saying I want to make $700 each month, that's just going to kind of set you up for disappointment, I think. So something to keep in mind. Anyway, I really hope this episode has been okay to listen to. I don't know. Sometimes I ramble on and I have no idea if anyone enjoys it. You're welcome to message me and let me know if you did. That would be very nice and reassuring. But I hope that you enjoy your Christmas if you celebrate that. Happy holidays if you don't. Just good work for 2025. I'm sure you've done some amazing work, and I hope that you're looking forward to 2026. I wish you all the best in your TPT journey. Have a terrific day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Terrific Teacherpreneur. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate that effort. Come back for more actionable tips and helpful wisdom in the next episode with your host, Alex. Until then.